Welcome to the Bowden Blitz College Football Playoff Edition. I'm Joe Lisi, joined by former National Coach of the Year, Terry Bowden. Coach, round two on the horizon for the College Football Playoff. We'll take a look at the updated national championship odds entering the weekend. Ohio State with the top spot at plus 180, followed by number one seed Indiana, Georgia, and Oregon to round out the top four. Give me your thoughts about these 8 teams left in the college football playoff, and which one, in your opinion, has the best shot to win a championship?
I think they're lined up pretty correctly, Joe. I think I still cannot go away from the fact that I think Ohio State and Indiana, based on the body of work, have the two best chances to win it all. They're the best teams. Now, I have a great feel for Georgia because I believe they began to play better toward the end of the season. And then again, the winner of the Oregon-Texas Tech game, of those two teams, I think they're the other teams that have the ability to go that far. But I think the odds are lined up pretty good. The question is not just who is the best throughout the year, but with injuries and all the other things, which ones end up getting hot each week. Because it's a situation where you got to play good every single Saturday late in the season, and that's not always the team that was the best halfway through the season or even at the end of the season.
Are you feeling that the books and the odds currently are disrespectful to Indiana at a 3-1 number? They are undefeated. They did knock off Ohio State in the Big Ten championship game, yet they have the second best price at 3-1, followed by Ohio State. Ohio State is a 9.5-point favorite over Miami. At the same time, Indiana is only a 6.5-point favorite over Alabama and Kalen DeBoer. Do you feel like that's a little bit disrespectful that the market is still not buying into the Hoosiers' big picture?
Joe, I think it goes back to the argument, do you win with coaching or do you win with talent? I think it's hard to go away from who has the most talent. And I think people always fall back in that category. But as a football coach who has been a coach for 30 years and watched each team's, there's not a team more fundamentally sound, more thorough in coaching than Indiana. They do the best job of covering every phase of the game. And I don't think voters or people that wager on games, and I have a hard time. When I'm in doubt, I pick the team with the best talent. And Ohio State has the best talent, but there's something to be said for a guy that can dadgum develop players and teach them the fundamentals. And I'll be honest with you, Kirk Cignetti has shown he's doing that better than anybody else.
Well, we'll take a look at the quarterbacks now for those top teams. You mentioned Kirk Cignetti in Indiana. They have the Heisman Trophy winner in Fernando Mendoza, put up dynamic stats throughout the season, 33 touchdowns, 71% completion percentage, over 2,900 passing yards. He was poised. If he made a mistake, he bounced back, especially in big games against Oregon, against Penn State, and most recently in the Big Ten championship game. Talk to me about Fernando Mendoza, big picture, and what he brings to the table for this offense.
Well, everybody throughout the season has some bad games or something they did wrong that didn't have a good game. He seems to always do good. He may have a bad play, but he seldom has a game where he said, boy, he went backwards that day. He's always playing his best. He's made big plays in critical times, whether it be against Ohio State at the end of the game or Penn State on the last play. He's shown he can respond because the number one thing, you remember old Bill Walsh with the 49ers, he used to say they have to have poise under pressure. He really is the best quarterback with poise under pressure.
When you look at another second-round matchup, at least on paper, this one is shaping up to be a dynamic game. These teams played a couple of years ago with Tyler Shook for Texas Tech. Oregon is a 1.5-point favorite in this ballgame on a neutral field. But you look at Behren Morton and you look at Dante Moore. In your opinion, Dante Moore is looked at as a potential first-round draft pick. He's athletic. He's mobile. He can make every throw. And on the flip side, Morton is more, you can make the argument, a system quarterback. Give me your thoughts about Dante Moore heading into this battle against one of the best defensive fronts in college football in Texas Tech.
Yeah, Dante Moore, between him and Fernando Hernandez, it's A1 and A2 or A1A and 1B as far as who I think will be the number one NFL draft pick. That talented, they can create, they can make big plays. But I think when you think of the quarterback at Texas Tech, he started 35 games. He understands their system. He manages their offense. So when you look at a football team, which which quarterback can run that team's offense, is comfortable with that offense. That's his strength, is he's a veteran in that offense, and there's a lot to be said for quarterbacks that can do good things with a system that they're running. But as far as talent's concerned, Dante Moore, it's hard to find someone more talented than him.
When you look at Dan Lanning, now this team in Oregon last year was undefeated in the regular season. They had the number 1 overall seed in the playoff, and they drew the Ohio State Buckeyes, and they got smashed in the Rose Bowl. When you look at that matchup last year from a coaching perspective, do you think Dan Lanning will take a different approach, maybe just knowing that there was a 3-week layoff last year and how he might potentially handle it differently? They already had a first-round game. They got the win in no cover against James Madison. But do you think his approach going up into this format, second-round game, is a little bit different than last year?
Oh, I think you've got to make adjustments. The more you're in the playoffs or in postseason, it's the same in the old days when there were only bowls and you might have had 3 weeks off, you might have 4 weeks off, and you got to learn how to adjust to that. It's not like the regular season where it's like 7 days next game, 7 days next game, every now and then 14 days. You have to learn, and you learn each week. And the key is, you hear it over and over again, don't play the game halfway through the season. But I mean, the preparation. Don't have them over-prepared before it's the day of the game. And I think that's the toughest thing to learn. How much do we not do? Because the tendency for a hard-driven coach is to do more. But more is not always better. You got to have them coming out of that tunnel at the very best they can play.
They put up 51 points on James Madison. Oregon is 11-1 this year. Their only loss came at the hands of top-ranked Indiana, 30-20. They didn't make second-half adjustments, did lose that matchup by 10 points in Eugene. They now take the draw with Texas Tech and Behren Morton. I know you brought up Behren Morton. He's an experienced quarterback, 35 games under his belt. What does he bring to the table? He's not as mobile as some of the other quarterbacks. No. They do have a dynamic 1-2 punch at the running back position, dominant effort out of this offensive line. But if Behren Morton, I think, plays from behind, that's something that he really hasn't done throughout the regular season.
No, I think when you put more weight on the quarterback's ability to create and make big plays with his arm and his legs, that's not him. I think their offense tends to be a little bit more like Georgia, where the quarterback's got to be a system quarterback. It's got to get the ball to the right people and be a part of the system. And his biggest strength, I think, is that he's got very good talent, but is that he's started 35 games. He's been there before. He understands what they're doing. Great relationship with the play caller and the quarterback coach and understanding what they want off him. So I think that's his strength. And what he's got to do, he's got to play within his system. If they can't run the ball at all for some reason and they've got to throw it and depend on his arms and his legs, I think it hurt. Dante Moore comes on stronger and stronger. He's the kind of guy that can create in that situation.
We'll see if Oregon can run the football effectively on that front seven for Texas Tech. Statistically, the best rush defense in the college football playoff, holding opposing offenses to only 2.3 yards per carry, around 72 rushing yards per game, and they haven't been tested on the ground in the Big 12. So we'll see how that game does play out. When we come back, there's bowls on the horizon outside the college football playoff. We picked some of the best bowls this weekend: Penn State, Clemson, Pittsburgh, ECU, and that battle between BYU and Georgia Tech. We'll talk about it right here on the Bowden Blitz. Joe Lisi and Coach Terry Bowden coming right back. All right, back on the Bowden Blitz. Joe Lisi and Coach Bowden breaking down the weekend bowl games before the college football playoff next week in round number 2. We'll be on next week as well, breaking down all the round 2 games. But let's talk about the battle. It is pretty intriguing. You got an ACC Big Ten battle between Dabo Swinney and Clemson going up against an interim staff of Smith and the Penn State Nittany Lions. Coach, when you look at Clemson, they started slow. They had 4 losses in the middle part of the year. They regrouped in a big way to win 4 straight down the stretch to finish the season at 7-5 overall. Penn State checks in at 6-6. Who do you give the edge to entering this ballgame? You know Dabo Swinney wants to get this win in a big way.
Well, and again, Penn State had a good finish, too, to get themselves back into a bowl situation. But, it's all about how much impact the end of the year has on your football team based on people that opt out, portal transfer, coaching changes. You look at Penn State, it's all about coaching changes and instability there. And whether you lose an assistant or not, they're looking for jobs. They're wondering what they're going to do. And so that's the biggest concern at Penn State. Do they have enough of their staff continuity? They're not looking for jobs. And looking elsewhere and prepared for this game, because to a lot of coaches, they're more worried about where they're going to be next year than where they are right now. Clemson, on the other hand, they've got coaching all there, but they have 7 guys gone on offense, 7 on defense. They've lost over half their team on both sides of the ball. The good thing is Klubnik is going to come back and play. His running back, his wide receivers are coming back, so you've got 2 possibly completely different teams. And I know I prepared for bowls. I prepared for conference championships. I can't imagine looking at a roster that's almost half of what you had 2 weeks earlier and now trying to figure out a game plan. And so it's going to be interesting how that works. When it all comes down to it, I still think the fact that Clemson's got its explosive offense there, its quarterback, its running back, wide receivers, I still think they have a good enough depth of defense. They lost almost everybody. Their best players on defense opted out. I do think they have enough explosiveness on offense to come out with the most points.
Yeah, and it really comes down to level of competition because, to your point, Penn State finishes the year on a 3-game win streak. They won those games by an average margin of victory of 16.3 points per game. On the flip side, Clemson does end their season on a 4-game win streak. They won those games by an average margin of victory of 16 points per game, but they were battle-tested, believe it or not, had a better road record than they did at home. They were 4-1 on the road or on a neutral field, and yeah, they do have their head coach and interim and going up against an interim staff. That's why I like Clemson in this matchup. Total wise, I think we can get to the 48.5. I don't love it. I think in order for Penn State to be in this game, they need to run the football. We'll see if they could do it, but I do lean to Clemson and the over in this matchup, Coach.
Yeah, I'm the same with you. I haven't really thought about them scoring that much points. I always see so much of it from a coaching perspective of having a change of coaching staff or having to design an offense with new players or a defense without the ability to blitz this certain run linebacker that was your best blitzer or this defensive end that the best doing a twist. And so I look at it with all these people that are missing. What do I have to do differently? How do I have to attack this football team? Do I have the same strengths and weaknesses that I had during the regular season? And so as I look at each team, I see with the coaching staff problem, but I do see that I think Clemson has the ability to put points on the board and win this football game, though I'm not sure how strong Penn State can put points on the board with what they've got.
Yeah, we'll see. Another matchup taking place is a pretty big one between a Big 12 ACC team. You got Georgia Tech. They didn't end their season the way they wanted. Lost in the last regular season game to Georgia 16-9. On the flip side, BYU gets smashed in the Big 12 championship game by Texas Tech. And you look at the quarterback advantage, Haynes King will play in this matchup. Coach, that's a huge advantage to Georgia Tech when you just look at this ball game overall. Give me your thoughts about Georgia Tech and BYU. BYU is an early 4.5-point favorite.
Yeah, I mean, this is going to be a really good game. These are teams that really, I thought most of the season Georgia Tech would be almost a shoe-in for that ACC championship game, and then they faltered at the end. BYU basically got blown out twice by Texas Tech, and if they would have just played them closer, they may have been in the playoffs. So these are two really good football teams, but overall, I look at the continuity of both teams, but especially BYU, they have found a way to win almost all their games. Georgia Tech faltered in key games, and Georgia Tech tends to give up points. But this is what you've heard me say many times. If Georgia Tech has the ball at the end and they can put it in King's hands, and Haynes King's hands, I think they can win it. But I think BYU will have enough offensive power to keep that situation from happening. Where in the past, when Haynes King had a chance to score at the end, they got too far behind and he couldn't catch them up.
Yeah, we'll see. It is the Pop-Tarts Bowl for both teams. Whoever wins will be able to get the Pop-Tart. That's always big in terms of the college football landscape. We'll see how it plays out. I think from a speed perspective, I do give the edge to Georgia Tech. I like them plus the 4.5 points. Total-wise, I'm just not sure. Bachmeier in that passing attack that did struggle in the Big 12 championship game has enough offense to potentially go toe-to-toe with Georgia Tech, especially if that offense is humming early on in this matchup. Another game taking place, ACC. We have Pittsburgh and East Carolina. You look at Pittsburgh right now, significant favorite, 10.5-point favorite. Total sets in at 54.5. Both teams check in at 8-4. Pitt was playing much better and consistent down the stretch before they lost to the Miami Hurricanes. Thoughts about how this potential matchup might play out?
Well, this is one of those situations where the portal, the opt-outs made a huge difference in the football teams. Not much difference in Pitt's football team. I think a linebacker opted out, but their quarterback is still there. Most of their players are intact. It's a chance for them to have another winning season and bowl victory for Narducci. The problem with ECU is that they lost their quarterback. They lost their running back. They lost their 2 wide receivers. They lost their offensive coordinator. They lost their defensive coordinator. And now they got to go out there and figure out what to do. I don't know. I don't know how you do it. I don't know how they could find an offense. They make it out and run the wishbone. I do think, and they talk about it, if they can do something totally different, if they could come out there and do something that Pitt's not ready for, they might have a chance. But with that much loss, I see no way they can stay within 10 points of Pittsburgh.
When we come back, we'll break down the college football playoff game. Hurricanes, Buckeyes coming up next. All right, back on the Bowden Blitz. Joe Lisi and Coach Bowden taking a look at the second round games for the college football playoff. We'll turn our attention to the battle between Ohio State and Miami. Miami knocked off Texas A&M 10-3, low-scoring game. It was the rushing attack led by Mark Fletcher. And Carson Beck in this battle is going to have to make plays if Miami's going to move on to the semifinal. You look at Miami, they entered this ball game as a 9.5-point underdog going up against one of the best defenses in college football in Ohio State, only allowing 8 points per game. Let's take a look at Julian Sayin, Coach. Julian Sayin didn't step up and lead his team to a Big Ten championship. He struggled in the second half against the Indiana Hoosiers defense. Thoughts about Julian Sayin's game and whether or not he could stretch that Miami defense over the top?
Well, Julian Sayin, this is a case again where you've got a young quarterback, Julian Sayin, who has not faced hardly any adversity. Got a great defense, got a great offensive skilled people. Games were very seldom in doubt. And so he did not have much adversity. When he comes up against Indiana facing adversity, he did not play well. Now he's going against Miami. Whatever their defense was during the season, they're at the top of their game. They sacked Marcel Reed 7 times last week and caused a ton of problems. And I think it's going to be a case of which quarterback really, it's not so much big plays, which quarterback doesn't make mistakes. You have a veteran like Carson Beck who's played in 35. He's 35-5 as a starting quarterback, and so he is a veteran. So I think the key is going to come first, which quarterback doesn't have turnovers, which one doesn't make mistakes. And then it's making a big play because I think, first of all, you got to make sure you don't lose the game. Against great defenses, make sure as a quarterback you don't lose the game first.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's take a look at the flip side with Carson Beck, experienced quarterback, 2 straight seasons with the Georgia Bulldogs, led that team to an SEC championship. He's been battle tested, didn't step up with a dynamic effort against Texas A&M, but he still put his team in a position to win that ball game. He's going to have to make some plays against his secondary. We've seen him struggle at times, especially in road environments, and he's not mobile in any capacity. He's going to have to get the football out quick, especially to his playmaker, Malachi Toney, that took that game over in the second half.
Well, you talk about Malachi Toney. Get the ball to him. Whether you get it to him short, get it to him on a stretch, whatever ways you get it to him, he can make the play after he catches the ball. But that is the MO, I think, on Carson Beck. He's not a dynamic quarterback. I'm not sure he's going to be a real high draft pick. He doesn't scramble and get himself out of trouble and extend plays, but he does have a vast amount of experience, and they win ball games, and they're playing good, solid football right now. So I think he just got – that's why don't go out there and make mistakes. When you can get Malachi Toney open, get the ball to him, get the 1 or 2 explosive plays, and then Mark Fletcher's got to have a running game against a very good defense. So, again, the biggest thing is don't go out there and try to win it every play if you're the quarterback of Miami, because Ohio State's defense will just eat you alive. You can't go out there and say, quarterback, I'm going to go out there and make this thing happen myself.
Do you think that Miami potentially has a speed advantage in any capacity over Ohio State? We know about Ohio State offensively with Cornell Tate and Jeremiah Smith, 2 of the most elite wide receivers, not just in the Big Ten, but in all of college football. You talked about Malachi Toney. They do have C.J. Daniels, but you saw that defense shut down a very mobile quarterback in Marcel Reed, right? That was a player that can run sideline to sideline and to get and challenge that offensive line to total 7 sacks. That was a dynamic effort. Do they potentially have any speed advantage offensively or defensively against the Buckeyes?
You know, I can't say for sure, but I would say Miami may have more team speed. They are just so explosive on the front 7. Their defensive ends attacking the quarterback, the speed of their secondary. Although I believe Ohio State secondary is par none the best in the conference. But Malachi Toney has incredible speed. You saw him return a punt as well as make a big touchdown sweep, outrunning everybody to win the football game. And so it's a very talented speed at Miami. You know, that's the history of Miami. They recruit as much local people as they've got. So people that you don't talk about a lot, they've got great team speed as well. So I don't think they will be looking up to Ohio State when it comes to team speed from that standpoint. It's just, are they as overall depth of talent that Ohio State has right now? And can Carson Beck play a clean game and make a big play or two in a clean football game?
We'll see. They're 9.5-point underdogs. If they do, in fact, knock off Ohio State, it would be a monumental upset. We'll see how it plays out. We'll be back next week breaking down all the second-round games for the college football playoff. For Coach Bowden, I'm Joe Lisi. Enjoy the games. Have a great weekend, everyone.